What would it feel like to be truly, deeply happy, regardless of your circumstances? Did you know that happiness is a choice and not a result? That you can create your life on purpose? Join us now to learn more. This is the Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. And here's your host, mindset coach, and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott.
Hello and happy Friday. Happy Friday. You are with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott, and today we are talking about judgment, right and wrong, and what does that actually create for us? Okay, so we're going to focus this on us and not on other people. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about today. It's going to be a little bit heavier than it normally is. And my sincere hope is that you get something out of this that will help you to think about some of the circumstances maybe that you're facing or that other people are facing in a bit of a different way. So on Time to Rise and Thrive, we talk about our subliminal soundtrack. We talk about how to get it working for us rather than against us. We also talk about recognizing our unique beauty, our value, and the contribution that we are to the world. It's really so much fun for me to talk about this stuff because it helps me to get myself into that sort of generative, yummy sort of energy. So this is one of my favorite times all week, in all honesty. And, I've got an amazing production team, no matter who's with me. Today, we've got Haley. Thank you, Haley, for being with us. She is a firecracker and she's funny and I just adore her. So let's get into it. Have you ever decided that you know what's right or wrong? Do you understand what that kind of judgment does to your body and your being? Standing in judgment of others can create much more difficulty for us, especially when we refuse to let it go. The simple truth is that we can't control what other people do. To create more ease, the trick is to get into a space of allowance, to decide the importance that you're going to put on things that are outside of your control and allow them to be what they are. Now, I know this can be a tough thing to do sometimes. I know, and it's very possible. So there's a sign behind me. You can't see the whole thing just because of the spacing that I have to work with when I'm on camera here, but it says, happiness is not a destination. It is a way of life. Things come up sometimes that make it a little bit hard for us to be in that space, and that's okay. But what we're working toward is having that generally, I'm very happy with my life space. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's possible to achieve that. It's absolutely possible to achieve that. So right now I'm going to share with you this idea of the subliminal soundtrack because I never knew who's here that's been here before or who's here that's new. So our subliminal soundtrack, this is my language for that loop of messages that plays in the back of our minds all day, every day. I've heard it called a whole bunch of different things over my time, but that's my terminology. So on that loop that plays there is stored a bunch of information that we've gathered throughout the course of our lives. So every single experience that you've ever had, every lesson you've learned, every relationship, every conversation, every single thing that has happened in your life has given you little bits of information that you've then stored back there on that soundtrack. And we use that information to create our belief systems around everything, around our value, our worth, our deservingness, what we're capable of, what's possible in the world. What does it mean to love or be loved? What does it mean to have money or not have money? All of that and everything else is rolled up in this thing that I call the subliminal soundtrack. So the really interesting piece of this is that what we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. And we're going to dig into that today because often when we're in that space of judgment where, it's important for us to be right and someone else to be wrong, it's because we have those belief systems. So when we get into our third segment, we're going to talk about kind of how to break free of that sort of thing. So one of the important things for me to share with you right now is it's October, and that is bullying. What is it? National Bullying Prevention Month, I think, here in Canada. I don't know what national, but it's all over Facebook. So whatever that is, right? National Bullying Prevention Month. So, what we have done as a society, which is really wonderful, is we have acknowledged that the bullying that goes on for children is incredibly detrimental. But what we may not always understand is that it's not just children who are being bullied. I know, I know. So what I want to share with you is this idea, and we're looking at that subliminal soundtrack in action, okay? Because your perspective will create your perception about anything. So two people can be standing side by side and witness exactly the same thing. Maybe it's a car accident, maybe it's an argument, maybe it's a whatever. It doesn't even matter what it is really, but two people standing right beside each other can experience something completely different in exactly the same circumstances. Interesting, right? Your perspective shapes your perception, right? So we see it all the time on social media. One person, somebody posts something, and whatever the reasons are, I know it's happened to me. I've posted something that I thought was really hilarious. And then I've had people that thought it was hilarious too, and people that went, wait, no, bad, offended. So hilarious and offended, two separate people, completely same thing, like exactly the same thing. And they have completely different perspectives or perceptions on what that thing means. So where we need to work toward is sort of an allowance that everybody is allowed to have their own point of view. It's happened even, I've seen it in families. Two kids grow up in the same household with exactly the same people, with exactly the same circumstances. And one child feels completely differently about their childhood than the other. Do you know people that that's happened with? I know lots of people that that's happened with. So these are the kinds of things. Um, we can have a different reality, and it's all shaped by that stuff that's happening back there. So one of the really easy ways to illustrate this, and I do this pretty much every week, is on in my family. If I were the person who has grown up with a parent who hates February, February is the hardest month in the year to get through. And every year, they're saying, "Oh my God, Jackie, oh my God, February's coming, February's coming, February's coming," and the sky is falling. That Chicken Little story, right? At a certain point, year after year after year after year, I've heard this thing over and over and over again. And you can bet that at some point I am going to start to brace, probably around mid-January, for that February thing that's coming. Can't be avoided. It's coming. And it's the hardest part of the year. But what if I'm someone who likes outdoor activities in the winter? Maybe I like to ice skate. Maybe I like to toboggan. Maybe I like to ski, whatever it is, right? Where I live, February is absolutely the best month of the year for those kinds of activities because it's generally our coldest month of the year. Maybe I really like Valentine's Day. Who knows, right? So the thing is that even though I love that month, if I don't do something to change that stuff back there to create a different perspective, a different perception, it may be interfering with my ability to enjoy things. And really, when we're talking about this judgment piece and finding our way into allowance, that's one of the biggest things. It's one of the biggest things because what happens is when we get into this space of judgment and right and wrong, it actually creates a whole set of circumstances around us that can really interfere with our ability to enjoy our lives. And, nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. So here's where I am going to start is that if you are on my Facebook page, you may already know that some stuff has been going on. It's not pleasant stuff, and it is what it is. I don't really want to sort of bring that a whole lot into this show or the energy of the show today, but I do want to talk about sort of this opposite thing because you have choices. Okay. You have choices, and this is going to be, it's going to be, it doesn't feel nice when people come at you with unpleasant stuff, when people try to say things about you. It doesn't feel nice. And you have a choice. You have a choice on how you handle that. That is almost always where our choice lies. We may not be able to control our circumstances or the other people around us or what they do or what they say. We really can't control any of that. What we can do is control how we respond to those circumstances. And that is your power place. That is your seat of power. You get to choose, am I going to, I'm trying to think of what a friend of mine said yesterday. She says something about collateral damage. Am I going to choose to be their collateral damage? Or am I going to choose to keep going? Am I going to choose to turn this into something? And people like me, we're called alchemists, and we're called alchemists for a reason. When you find, what is that? There's a fairy tale, Rumpelstiltskin. So remember how in Rumpelstiltskin, geez, I can't even talk today. Remember how in that story, he turned straw into gold. That is alchemy. That is alchemy. So we take something that comes that's not useful or not helpful or possibly even ugly, and we turn it into something completely different. So alchemists have this ability to take wisdom or learning or something out of whatever happens and shift it into something different. That's what we do. So in the near future, there's going to be some stuff going on my Facebook page. Please have a look. And if you are somebody who is dealing with this sort of bullying stuff as an adult, please keep your eye open. Like the page, you'll find resources available to you there. You'll find it under Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. So the thing about this, I understand this whole thing of, grudges and holding on to things. I understand it very, very well. I have an Irish background, and although it may not be politically correct to say it, this is one of those things that we are known for. We are known for being able to hold on to things for a very, very long time. And so it was interesting for me as I was, watching family members and whatnot, because I don't tend to choose to hold on to things that are not comfortable for me. I tend to like to just get it done, whatever it is, and then get on with things and move toward new stuff, happy stuff, fun stuff, whatever the case may be. And so I have it sort of deeply ingrained in my DNA that, holding on to this grudge stuff. And I saw some expert grudge keepers in my life because of the people that I grew up with. So one of the things, just briefly, a friend of mine, we've been talking about stuff and whatnot, and she really likes Dr. Phil. So one of the things that I hear her say quite often is people are right fighters. They are right fighters, and they will fight to the death in order to defend their rightness. At least that's what I take from that statement. And that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't seem to me to be a very healthy, happy place to live, but people do what they do, and it's all good. It's all good. So we're going to talk about the impact that energy, that judgment has on our bodies and on our beings in our next segment. So again, I want you to, in the third segment, I want to make sure that you've got your pen and paper handy, because we're going to have some tips on how to break free of this stuff. Last thing that I want to say about this before we head to our break is there's a thing that they call gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is one of the things that happens when we're dealing with people who are determined to be right, because they just simply will not hear any other point of view. That's the truth. And it's okay. Again, people are allowed to have their own perspectives, and they will have their own perspectives. So this isn't about making anybody wrong. It's just a fact. So when people are gaslighting, the kinds of things that you're going to watch for to see this stuff is when they are committed to telling you that your story is untrue, your version of events is untrue. And they do it over and over and over and over and over again. there's like this brainwashing kind of thing that goes on when that happens. It's like, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And we're going to get more into that as we go through the show today. So stick with me. I'm going to take us into our first break right now. You are with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, and we will be back in just a moment.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, and today we are talking about what happens to us when we stand in judgment and how to shift to allowance. So in this segment, I just want to talk about sort of the physical, emotional, energetic kind of impact that this sort of stuff has on us. So one of the first things that comes to me when I think about this is the energetic tie that we hold on to. Okay. So when we are focusing a lot of our attention, or even a little bit of our attention, on somebody else and something else and what they're doing and what they're saying and all of that kind of stuff, we actually are tying ourselves in more and more and more. It's like we get more and more and more entangled in whatever is happening there, instead of just letting it go and letting them do whatever they're going to do. This actually creates a really disempowered position. So again, when we are standing in judgment of others, we are in a disempowered position. I know it might sound kind of wonky, but just stick with me for a minute. We're giving our power away, and we are giving importance to something that probably doesn't serve us very well. Okay, so think about, stuff that happens at work, maybe, where there's a situation where something has happened and we get wound right up, or in a social circle, or whatever the case may be. We get wound right up in those circumstances, and we start to almost buy in, and we give it our energy, we feed it our energy. And then maybe you get to a place where you're like, I don't even remember exactly what happened. Wow. Why am I so angry at this person again? Has that ever happened to you? Why am I so angry at this person again? I don't even remember what they did. Because we carry this stuff. We can carry this stuff around for a very, very long time, years, decades, and think about what that does. Think about what that does for us energetically, emotionally, physically. So we'll start with sort of the mental side of this. There was a thing that I learned about many years ago. It's called the victim triangle. So when you're in a victim triangle with other people, there are always three people, at least three people, there might be more. And we have like one person is the victim, one person is the rescuer, and the other person is the persecutor. When we get caught up in this specific dynamic, it causes so much upset to everybody. And the funny thing is that we can switch positions. That's what makes it this dynamic. So maybe in this circumstance, I am the persecutor. And then that means that there's somebody else who's a victim and somebody else who's the rescuer. Okay. So let's say that that's the case and I am the persecutor now. So what happens if the victim decides that they've had enough? Well, then they then maybe become the persecutor and I become the victim. And then that person who's floating between us may decide that they're going to come to my rescue. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's this whole dynamic. There's this whole dynamic that goes around and around and around, and you can get caught up in that and spend years of your life switching roles. You know, I'm going to defend myself. I'm angry with you, and you said this and that, and they come back at you, and now you're the victim. It really is fascinating. This was something that was shared with me by a psychologist that I knew. And there is a book. If you find that you are in that sort of circumstance or that sort of dynamic with people in your life, there is a book, and I think it's simply called The Victim Triangle. If you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it. But it's fascinating how we can roll ourselves up in these things and perpetuate them for on and on and on. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a toxic triangle. It's a toxic triangle because people are stuck, and it's like, think about toxic. Think about what that means. It's poisonous. It's not good for us. It's not good for our bodies, our beings, our anything, our spirit, nothing. It's not good. It's not good. And, you know, we're going to get to that place where we're going to talk about how do we break free of this stuff. From an emotional standpoint, how does this impact us? From an emotional standpoint, I want you to perceive the energy of these two things that I am about to say: justification and blame and fault. Perceive the energy of justification, blame, and fault. Does any of that feel light and fun? Does any of that feel expansive or generative in any way? Or does it feel like a box that we step into? Does it feel like something that constricts us and holds us in place and creates a lack of freedom and a lack of expression? How does it feel for you? If I am justified, and believe me, there have been times in my life where I felt very justified. But if I'm coming from that energy, then I'm going to be focusing, like laser focused on something that is not bringing me joy or pleasure. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm laser focused on something that is not bringing me joy or pleasure. It's very likely not bringing me money. It's very likely not creating happiness and laughter. Do you see what I'm saying? Justified. It's your fault. You are to blame for. Feel that. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So when we're wrapping ourselves up in this justification, this fault and this blame, we are actually putting up a wall, a barrier around us that prevents us from getting to those things that are fun and happy and joyful, to the money flows, to the business opportunities, to the new possibilities. I did the summit. I've talked about this on the show. I did the summit 2 weeks ago, something like that. And what I was really finding fascinating this morning is the connections that I have formed with people that I likely wouldn't have met. Maybe I would have met them eventually, but at this stage in my world and at this stage in my life, had I not gone forward with that thing that I did, I wouldn't have connected with those people. And now the things that are showing up because I was open and willing to do those things, the things that are starting to show up, the connections and where those may lead, in a place of functioning from the kingdom of we. And I just love the energy of the kingdom of we. In a place where we're functioning from the kingdom of we, it's about, what can I do that's going to help you and also help me? What are you going to do that's going to help me and also help you? How can we help each other move forward? Do you see what I'm saying? The energy of that space, there's no space for justification and right and wrong and fault and blame. There's no room for that. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's the other part, because now we've blocked ourselves off from all of the things that may have shown up if we weren't in that justified space. Think about kids on the playground. Think about, think about kids on the playground, and they kind of flock together, right? Often when you see kids that are being bullied or doing the bullying, there is often a group. There's a group that has decided that whatever they've decided, that person is different, and therefore we need to call them out. We need to pick on them. We need to say nasty things. We need to, I don't even know, in all honesty, because I was bullied all the way through school. I never understood what it was about. I never understood what there was to be gained from doing that to another human being. I've never understood it. But what I would like you to perceive is that there's this thing that happens at a certain point where that usually shifts. Somewhere in high school, maybe in college, the person who's been bullied often starts to make friends that see them from a different place, right? And so the bullying that used to happen, we just sort of, we don't be around it. We don't have it in our space. We don't let those people into our worlds, because how does it feel to be around a person like that? It doesn't feel good to hear people, bang on the same drum for very long. It doesn't feel good to, every time that we talk to or see somebody, be rolling around in ugly, yucky stuff. It doesn't feel good. And so what usually happens to those bully people is either that they have this group, this band, I don't even know what to call it, but they have this group, right, that stays with them throughout. Or at a certain point, they find people going, it's not much fun to be around you. It's just not fun to be around you. And I don't want to really be here anymore. So I'm going to, I'm going to separate myself from the situation. That is very often how things go for the people who are bullies. And the other people, it's a terrible thing to say, but there was something that I really loved. And it was something, Robert Kiyosaki, I want to say, and he was talking about how, these people will end up pumping gas for those ones. Do you see what I'm saying? So in my experience, when I was in school, I wore glasses from the time I was 6 years old. I was a chubby kid. We've talked about that. I was smart, hardworking, all of that kind of stuff. And I was really very mature for my age. That was the thing that was like all throughout teachers, my family, my friends, parents, all that kind of stuff. I think it's just because I'm an old soul. I really think that's all it is. And so I was different, and I was very easily identified as different. The glasses, I mean, they're there. When I got to be a teenager, I started wearing contacts sometimes. And I mean, that helped, I guess. But the thing of it is, I don't have a problem with wearing the glasses. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's also one of the side offshoots that happens is when we are picked on, when we are bullied for certain things. Sometimes we get really comfortable with who we are, and it doesn't really matter what other people say. And when you get to that level of confidence and comfort in your own skin, you're kind of unstoppable. I love it. All right, so I'm getting the finger. It's time. I just realized how that sounds. Sorry, Haley. She didn't do that. So anyway, it is time for us to head to our next break. Grab your pen and paper and come back and join me. You're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how we can start to pull this thing apart so that we can break free of being in that space of judgment and break free of those things that we maybe have been creating for ourselves. So stick with us. We'll be back in just a minute.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. And today we are talking about sitting in the place of judgment and the toll that that actually takes on ourselves. Also, how we can shift that into a place of allowance so that we can let it go and get on with things. So this is one of those things that I have worked with actually quite a number of people on over the years. And it really does bring me a lot of joy, because when we can break free of this stuff, what we do is we open things up in a way that allows so much more. I have a friend who says to me, you know, if you have your fist tightly clenched, I might have $1 million bill that I'm going to fold up and try to shove into that fist. But if it's tightly clenched, I can't get it in there. It doesn't matter how hard I try. It doesn't matter how small I fold that up. And there is such wisdom in what she's talking about. She says we have to open ourselves up. And if you have an open hand, then I can lay that $1 million bill right in your open hand and we could stack it as high as the ceiling. So this is one of those things that we don't really seem to understand when we are shutting ourselves off, when we have our fists firmly clenched. We are actually making it impossible for good things to come to us, for happy things to come to us. I love working with people about this stuff. And the truth of the matter is that there's not sometimes, it's not as hard as it might sound to start to shift these things. I have on my website, jackiemott.com, there is a free guidebook that I've written. It's called 5 Steps to Create a Mindset Wired for Success. It's free. Go on there, download it. It gives you some of the steps and how to go about if you're in this place where you've got some messaging going back there that is not helping or propelling you forward. It will help you to break free of some of that, or break through some of that stuff. And if you need a little bit of help after you've gotten an understanding, that I'm here. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. So you can find me on Facebook at Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can find me on my website at jackiemott.com. And you can also book a call with me. We call it an what is it? Ultimate Unstoppable You Intensive call with me by going to www.bookacallwithjackie.com. If you are having challenges around any of this mindset stuff, I would really love to have a conversation with you and see if we can't break through some of it. It doesn't take that long once you understand what you have to do. And once you've done it a little bit, then it just gets easier and easier and easier to do. So let's talk about this thing. Let's talk about how we can actually break free from this thing where we're holding ourselves back from the things that could be opening up for us because we refuse to be in a state of allowance. So I've got a bunch of questions that I've written down here, and I'm going to ask you to grab your pen and paper and write them down as we go through. Now, if you miss anything, because we do have time limits on the show, if you miss anything, you can always find the recording of the show on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com or on my Facebook page. I post the link when they become available. So here we go. Are you ready? First question I want you to ask yourself: why is this so important to me? Why is this so important to me? And what I'm going to ask you to do, this stuff can be heavy. It can be difficult to do, because what we need to do is we need to start opening ourselves up in a way that we can see what's going on and what's causing us to engage in these sorts of behaviors. So again, why is this so important to me? The next question: what do I have to gain from holding on to this? What do I have to gain from holding on to this? Now, you're going to journal this stuff, or you're going to book a call with me, or you're going to find someone else that you can talk with about this stuff. This is where we often need help. We often need a different perspective, because remember, that subliminal soundtrack creates our perspective, our perception of everything. So it can be very difficult when we are not allowing for another point of view, another perspective to come in and help us with these things. It can be very difficult to actually do that break. So if you need help, I'm here. Find a friend, whatever works for you, maybe a counselor, whatever it is that you need. And there's no shame, by the way. There's no shame in asking for help and support when you are going through anything difficult. It can be the thing that actually helps you move faster through things. So what am I justifying? Oh, ouch. What am I justifying in myself or in my life by making myself right and the other person wrong? That one's ouchy. What am I justifying in myself or my life by making myself right and the other person wrong? I think sometimes we don't even actually realize that we are doing that. There's so much information out there. Like when I point at you, I have 3 fingers pointing back at me. There are people that say that what I'm pointing out about you is because that's in me and I'm uncomfortable with it. There's so much stuff around that sort of line of thought. So what am I justifying in myself or my life by making myself right and that person wrong? I don't even like the energy of that question, but it is a very important question to ask yourself as you're working through this. Next question. What am I blocking from my experience by holding on to this story? What am I blocking from my experience by holding on to this story? So think about, just for a second, think about, we all know people who have lost someone who was very important to them, and they've gotten really stuck in that grief. And it's hard for them to move forward into whatever. They just sort of stay in that. For example, let's say it's a parent. Let's say it's a parent, and they feel the loss of that parent for as long as they choose to, right? They feel the loss of that person for as long as they choose to. Now, I'm not saying for a second that there aren't times in my life when I feel the loss of people who have been important to me. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that it becomes a sort of a confine. It becomes a sort of a cage or a box or something like that, where it holds you in that space until you choose to break free. So what am I blocking from my experience by holding on to this story? If you're someone who's a widow, maybe you're blocking yourself from finding another partner that might be a beautiful addition to your life. Maybe you're blocking yourself from having fun experiences with friends, with people, with however, okay? I know this is hard, and that's why I'm saying I'm here, and there are other people out there who can help you with this stuff. We have to get honest with ourselves in order to break free of this thing that is very likely creating a toxic space for you, that is very likely holding you back from the joy that you could be experiencing if you could just let it go. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying this from a total place of love. This is not a space of judgment at all. What are you holding yourself back from? What are you blocking from coming into your world? Okay. The last one. This one is, what is it costing me? Maybe it's costing you emotional energy. Maybe it's costing you friends. Maybe it's costing you money. Opportunities are not coming your way, or just holding back, not taking the risks that you need to take to move forward. What is it costing you to stay in that space? What is it costing you to hold on to? So I want to just for a second, there's a thing, and I'll show you. So how much does this weigh? How hard is this for me to hold? Not hard for me to hold for a moment. It's not hard for me to lift. It's not really that heavy. But if I were to hold on to this and not be able to put it down for an hour or 5 hours or a day, would it not grow heavier and heavier and heavier as the time passed? Often when we pick these things up, they're tiny. They're not even really that big of a deal. But when we hold on to them for a very long time, they get bigger and they get heavier and they get bigger and they get heavier. It's like that snowball rolling down the hill, and it's growing and growing and growing as it goes. And I really, really want to say it is so bad for us. It is so toxic. It can cause health problems. The stress alone, the stress-related illness, heart problems, weight gain, the problems with digestion, problems in our relationships. If you're stressed right out, and again, there is no judgment, but if you are stressed out all the time, how many people are going to find their way away from you? Because it's just not much fun, right? It's just not a whole lot of fun to be around. So what is it costing you to stay in that space? Now, when you have asked yourself these questions, and I think when I post this on my page, and maybe my producer will do the same thing, I'm going to post these questions for you. When you have had some time, and don't rush through this, give yourself time to sit and journal and think. Maybe you need to cry. Maybe you need to vent. I know that there was a time when I had to visit a family member's grave, and I'd avoided it for a long time. And when I went to that space, there were things that I had held on to and not said for such a long time. And it was painful to bring that stuff up, but I felt so much better when it was done. The release of all of that and the energy that frees up, because it's so hard to hold on to things. Like I said, it's so hard to hold on to this mug for a day or a year, or it's fine in an instant. So what do we have to do to be able to say, okay, I'm letting it go, I'm putting it down? That's what we want to work on. Now, what I want to share with you right now before we head to our last break, I want to share with you that I have decided, and I don't have all of the information yet on what this is going to look like, but I have decided that I will provide some sort of safe space. It will likely be a group, because to do, a lot of individual people would require a lot of time that I really don't have a lot of time to do. But I would like to create some sort of space that will help people who are working through this space of bullying, of harassment. It can happen in the workplace, it can happen in the home, it can happen anywhere. And we really need to be able to have a safe place to tell our story, to support others. You are not alone. You are not alone. This is happening everywhere. And especially, I think it's gotten worse through the pandemic. So there will be something coming. Please find the page, Jackie Mott Mindset and Empowerment Expert, on Facebook. Like the page, and then you get the updates. So as soon as I start to put out there how this is going to work and what this is going to look like, you will be updated. If you have anybody in your life who is going through this that needs some support, please, they are welcome. All right, so that's where we're going to leave it for this segment of the show. We're going to go to our last break, and when we come back, we are going to tie up this conversation around standing in a place of judgment and what it actually does for you when you're holding on to this, and what it can create for you when you let it go and get into a space of allowance. So you're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. When we come back, we're gonna wrap this whole thing up. See you in just a moment.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. And if you caught me laughing during the break, I was just looking outside. I've got this great big tree in my backyard, and the squirrels are just going crazy right now, and the birds are dive bombing. It's quite fun to watch. It's sort of like a cartoon almost, but real life. So how wonderful is it? So we are in autumn here where I live, and I just love this time of year. And it's sort of weird because I like the two. I like spring and I like fall best. I find that there's this like death and rebirth cycle that I can really understand and I can really engage with. So I'm just loving all of the leaves, all the colors, all of the animals playing. Haley says, thanks, animals, for lightening up my life. Absolutely. I love animals. I really do. So yeah, we are talking today about being in a place of judgment, what that does to us, and what it can free up if we can find a way to get to this place of allowance. So allowance is kind of that thing where it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to put my energy here instead. Do you see what I'm saying? We need to get to a place where we can understand that other people do have a different perspective, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with them having another perspective. What may be wrong is them trying to convince us that our perspective is incorrect or invalid, and that it's not okay. That's gaslighting. And gaslighting is a form of abuse. This thing where people are trying to impose their opinions, their thoughts, their judgments on us. It's sort of like this. I wish I had something to hold up. I don't have anything to hold up, but it's sort of like them like, I'm going to beat you into submission and banging you over the head. You are not going to, or you are going to, or whatever the case may be. It's like, I'm going to beat you into submission, whether that's physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever the case may be. It's not good. It's not kind. And like, really, there comes a point when you must stand. There comes a point when allowing that to continue is no longer okay. I said to you, I've been bullied through most of my life. I was the chubby kid. I was a kid with glasses. I was smart. I was easy to pick on. And one of the things that I really learned in all of that was that bullies rarely back off until you stand up. They rarely back up until you stand for yourself. So again, if you are someone who is dealing with those sorts of things, there will be an offering coming out very soon. It will be very low price or possibly free. I don't know. I have to work out all the details, but it will be coming soon. So find me, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert, on Facebook, and like the page, and you will get updates on that. So that's really our time for today. I've got about 2 minutes left. I want to share a quote with you. And this was inspired actually by Misty Lane. She was my guest last week. So you can find that on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com or on my Facebook page. Go back and watch her. She's absolutely freaking brilliant. So I've got, you have a story, maybe different from someone else's, and that's okay. You have a right. They have a right to their version of things, and so do you. It isn't up to someone else to tell you what you experienced or the impact that it had on you. Speak your truth, even if you say it with a shaky voice. So that's what I've got for you this week, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me on Time to Rise and Thrive. This is one of my favorite times of the week, every week. We will be back next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 Mountain, and 10 Pacific. Next week's show is going to be fun. Next weekend is Halloween. So next week, we're going to talk about the magic of you. Yes, the magic of you. We're going to talk about manifestation, creation, and calling in the things that you desire to have in your life. We were talking today about how we're blocking things off. So how can we open up? How can we open up and actually bring those things into our world? It's so much fun to play with. If you've never done it before, please be with me next week or watch for the replay. It will go up on Facebook, on my page, on Inspired Choices Network, and we're all over the place. I think we're on iHeartRadio and Binge TV Network. We're everywhere. So just join us again next week. All right. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the contribution of your energy to my world. I appreciate it so much. I have so much fun with you. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. Jackie Mott will return next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Have a fantastic week, and remember, it's your time to rise and thrive.